Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the Behind the Edge podcast. I'm Brian, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Jacob, Vextos, and Echo Gecko. We completely forgot to do a pocket dump in the first episode, so I want to start off by asking, what are you guys carrying today?
Okay. I'm carrying the Metamorph again today because, it's just so easy to put in my pocket. And I did like a 3-hour trip today, so that's all I carried today. So Jacob, you can go ahead now.
I have the Spyderco McBee. I love this thing. It's so small.
You got that customized, right?
Yeah, I had him do some laser engraving for like honeycomb pattern on the front, and then I had him add jimping so I can front flip it. It is the smallest front flipper I think I've ever seen in my life, but it actually works.
Who did that customization?
McNeese.
Oh, McNeese.
Yeah,
him.
Yeah, he offers it. Yeah.
Straight from the source.
Oh,
so I just
wow,
bought directly from him.
So do you send it to him?
No, I bought directly from him, and he modified it with his latest batch, and then just sent it out to me.
That's awesome.
So how much more did that cost?
It was $25 for each thing, which I thought was a little steep, but but it was from him directly. So, because I know I probably could have sent it to you and had you add jimping for like a quarter. But
you charged $25 for jimping?
It's really rough jimping too. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, it has to be rough because he did it after heat treat.
Yeah.
Right.
So but it's like, I'm not saying it's badly finished, but I can tell he literally just like grinded in the jimping. That's it.
Yeah.
And the laser engraving, I don't know how much laser engraving costs, but I know the jimping was overpriced, but I'm okay with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild, but I mean, at least you like it, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's a neat knife. I like it a lot.
Yeah, the McBee is definitely, one of the coolest knives that have come out pretty recently.
It's definitely my smallest knife. I think it's actually shorter than it's shorter than a Victorinox Classic.
Yeah, the only knife I can think of that's in that same range is like the Hummingbird, the Reich Hummingbird.
Yeah, I've had one of those as well. I prefer this personally, but the Hummingbird's pretty cool too.
Yeah. I carried the Lingma Field Duty today because I can't get the Crew Carta, so that's the next best thing, I guess.
That's certainly not a bad knife, though. That's an
cool
awesome piece.
Wait, do you have the one that has the bolster look?
Yeah, the bolster looking one,
like
the
full type
marble one.
I like that one.
Yeah,
that's
marble
badass.
or nothing.
Marble or nothing. What am I?
What are you carrying, Brian?
Well, the truth is, I was actually taking a nap until I woke up for this podcast, so I wasn't really like carrying anything today. But the first thing I reached for to play with today was the Kaiser Feist.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's my favorite knife. It's because I'm like suspicious about it. So here's the thing. So I got this knife from Spooky Swap, right? The Reddit. For people who don't know, you can go on if you're a member of a knife club, and being a member just means you go on the subreddit, so you don't really have to do anything. But basically, it's like White Elephant, where one person anonymously gives a gift to another person, who anonymously gives a gift to another person, and so on. And
Secret Santa.
Yeah,
Secret Santa is another.
Yeah, exactly. So Secret Halloween. So wait, what? But yeah, so I got a Kaiser Feist, and I love the design, and I think the construction is good, and I have really calloused fingers. So, like, people complain about the sharp lock bar. I can see it, but it doesn't bother me personally. The only thing I don't know about this knife is the heat treat, because Kaiser is known to sort of not have the most consistent heat treat for S35VN, and I've experienced that myself. So, and I actually made a YouTube video about this today, but I don't really use my knives that much anymore. I mostly use knives that I make because I need to test them. So whenever I can, I try to carry the Feist so I can just get a little bit of like a taste of is this properly heat treated or not. So
yeah, just some testing.
Yeah, because I can't have a knife that's not properly heat treated in my collection. It just bugs me.
You ruined it for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know. Doesn't Kaiser's end up usually being chippy? I think is what the consensus has been, or is it the other way around?
No, it's the whole like very like range. It's the whole range. Like so, I've heard some people say it's chippy. I have had my friend has owned a Kaiser Gemini, the S35 yen titanium one. I have also owned 2 of those same exact ones, and all 3 of them got dull after like maybe 60 feet of cardboard. Like just nothing, just cut a little bit dull instantly. Like so, there's that problem as well. I think there was actually an HRC test done on one of them, and it came back at like 53 or something.
Oh my god!
Butter knife.
So
you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, so and I haven't got that impression from this Feist yet, but who knows, right? Like I'm not like scientifically cutting or anything. I'm just using it every now and then. So
Wow,
that's wild. But yeah, okay, I see what you mean though. They seem to be inconsistent rather than like going one way or the other.
Right. They just can't seem to hit it exactly spot on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard good things about the Feist. Seems like a fun front flipper to have.
Oh, and it is important to note that, for people who are worried about, because if you got the old Feist, the one with that swirly pivot, there was a problem where it was hitting the backspacer.
What?
That was like a major problem.
New CQI.
Yeah. So I have the newer version without the swirly pivot, and it's fine. It doesn't hit at all. It's like I can very easily see the space between the blade and the backspacer. So like with my eye, I can just see that it's not touching. So there's no problem. It's literally it's honestly an awesome knife. I'm just worried about that heat treat because it's the one thing I can't visually inspect and be like, oh, it's good. Like until I use it, I'm not gonna know.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to let us know how it goes. I know you beat the crap out of your knives, so.
Well, that's the problem, is that this is technically a sentimental knife. It's my first spooky swap, and I don't beat on my sentimental knives. So, I only use it when I need to. So, it's going to be a while before I know if it's actually, like, good or not.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's fine.
Yeah, but that's what I'm carrying, technically.
Yeah. Okay, so next is housekeeping.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Vex upgraded his mic, and now we're all natively recording. So we're all recording to our own Audacity file. So it should be much more pristine quality. There should be less artifacting.
It doesn't sound like I'm in a tunnel no more.
So that'll be...
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, it does to us, but no, I'm kidding. But so yeah, it's going to be from here on out. It should be pretty good quality audio wise, and you can also now you should be able to find us on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker.audio, and RadioPublic.com, and hopefully by the time that this podcast airs, iHeartRadio.
That's a dream.
What I'm hoping.
Well, we're real now.
Yeah, I know, right? It's pretty fun. I'm really happy with how it's going and how it's growing. So if you have any questions you want to ask us for the podcast, you can direct them to behindtheedgepod@gmail.com. So it's just behindtheedgepod, all one word, @gmail.com. And so I kind of want to segue into, we did get some questions from last podcast in the YouTube comments, which I keep track of. So Harquit, you guys know Harquit.
Yeah.
He asked us the question, or 2 questions. First one is, what is the most underrated aspect of knife design and production knives today? And then he asked the next question, what's the most overrated aspect?
Oh, well, first off, hi, Harquit. What's up? The other thing is, I think that's actually a really good question. Because it does sort of connect to what our topic later, in a sense, right? Because what we individually perceive to be underrated or overrated are things that will affect how we collect, right? Like if I think something's overrated, I'm not going to collect that, right? So so I think that's a good question. Does anyone want to start?
Ergonomics. That's the most underrated by far.
So like, what do you think about?
I'll agree with that.
Like what aspect?
We're in
of
the day and age of knife making where you need to stand out. And you see it with a whole bunch of new designers. They want to stand out with their designs. So they make some form over function choices, And that's cool and all. But when you actually get to use the knife, all those crazy cool lines might not feel the best in your hand, you know? And at the end of the day, if you're buying a knife for the design, you're probably not going to be hard using it. Let's be honest here. But
That's
Right.
yeah, that's true. And that, you know, I have a point related to that, which is because I think ergonomics. I also agree that it's super underrated. I think it's underrated in this by the makers as well, in the sense that sometimes they don't realize that little things they do can be bad for long term use. So a good example is the Millet Torrent that I cut all that. I cut 800 feet of triple wall cardboard with it, and only because I cut so much with it did I realize that the steel lock bar insert, how it protrudes from the lock bar, that can actually cause blistering on your index finger. And like little things like that, which it would actually not hurt the design whatsoever if that didn't protrude. Like if it was just made flush with the lock bar.
Yeah.
So that could just be an improvement he could make if he wanted to.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. That ergonomics is one of the most underrated aspects of knife design, mainly because that's something that I look for in all of my knives now. Like I collect a lot of Spydercos because a lot of Spydercos, I feel like appeal to me ergonomically, like the Mannix and whatnot. And I feel like a lot of people in the Discord talk about ergonomics, in any case, really. Like it always ends up like they end up saying, man, I love this knife that I just got, but ergonomically now I've got a blister on my hand,
Yeah. That happens
So I
way
feel
too
like I agree
often,
with that.
honestly. And ergonomics, to me, nowadays, it includes things not just your handle grip, but things like, is the lock bar cut out, like, easy to access? Is it sharp? All those are included in ergonomics to me nowadays, because they're things that makers aren't getting right. So,
Oh, another thing I want to say is jimping.
Yeah.
Jimping is people want it or not. I think jimping isn't necessary, but you can't complain about jimping being sharp because that's literally the whole point of jimping. Like, is so your hand doesn't fall off the knife. So.
I think jimping can be well done. I think what I like are those shallow but slightly sharp jimps. Not those like where it's like literally like mountain peaks. Like I hate that because those
that falls into ergonomics, I think, though.
It
as
does,
a whole.
yeah.
So
one thing that is actually related to ergonomics, and this is what I'm going to put out as the most underrated aspect of knife design, is just like the grind and like the thinness behind the edge. Because what I have found is that even when a knife has ergonomics that aren't stellar, if it's thin enough and it cuts well enough, then I don't notice it for such a long time anyway, because the knife just cuts so easily. Because you only notice an ergonomic flaw when you're when you're gripping hard and you're like putting force into your cut. Like that's when ergonomics really start to matter the most.
Yeah.
So if you can cut easily,
that makes sense.
Yeah, if I can cut easily, it's like I don't even notice the ergonomic problem for a long time.
And that's kind of why a lot of people like you, Brian, are so interested in the behind the edge measurements and stuff like that, and the blade grind itself. So yeah, that makes sense. What would you guys say is the most overrated aspect?
For me, and this is not entirely overrated, but I think too many companies are emphasizing their steels that they're using over how, kind of like Brian mentioned, how those steels are ground or how they're heat treated. So you can have something like S35 VN that is a premium steel, but if Kaiser does it, it's going to be soft, so it doesn't matter. Or companies just bragging about D2. It's a fine steel, but they're better out there for the same amount of money or less.
Right, and heat treated
so I think
more
too many
consistently
buyers
as well.
look into that. Yeah, exactly. But for an average consumer, they see like M390, for example, and they're all over it. But if it's done by some companies, it doesn't really matter.
The name,
You're just paying for more expensive steel. Yeah,
and that's
work.
I completely agree. That's the funny thing is that but people who make knives, like companies and makers, they know that it's overrated by consumers, so that's why they keep using those steels, because they know it sells.
Yeah, of course. It's like a marketing ploy at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah. I think another thing that I would say is overrated, at least in my opinion. This may be a little bit controversial, but I would say like at least companies pushing bearings in their knives is a little bit overrated, at least in my opinion. Because personally, I just feel like, and I guess this is just a personal preference, but personally, I feel that washers are just more viable in a knife, just because I don't have to take apart my washer knives nearly as much as I do my bearing knives.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I straight up cannot use. I like bearing knives for EDC and playing around, but I cannot use them in my workshop. Like I just can't. Like they get dirty so fast.
Yeah. So if you're doing outside work, I mean, that's when I really just don't pick up my bearing knives. So I guess, when it comes to, like when people are like, wow, it's so drop shutty and, whatever, I guess I just feel like that can be a little overrated.
I think you're right. I think action is overrated.
That's what mine is. I think, to me, deployment is infinitely more important than the drop shot. Just because some people prefer soft detents, but I've had cases where I've had soft detent knives and they've opened in my pocket and I have cut my hand because the detent's so small or soft.
Or you try to, launch it out and it doesn't come out.
Yeah. That sucks too, man. That
there's definitely a sweet spot you need to hit for a detent. It's subjective, obviously, but I prefer a hard one.
Right. You want it to be...
And the drop and the drop shut thing, at some points it can get to where, like, it's cool and all from a fidget perspective, maybe, but there's some points it can get to where it's almost dangerous. Like my Spyderco Paisan, the blade is heavy, which I think is part of what helps this. But it literally, if you get it past the detent ball, it slings down.
Yeah.
And I've almost cut myself several times just closing the knife in normal use.
No, that's how my
that's not okay.
my ZT 0801 Ti is exactly. It's a huge, fat, heavy blade, and it's it slings down, it drops shut real nice, but I've had it come down on my thumb before without, pulling out of the way fast enough, and so
it's not fun.
Yeah, and the question is, do you really want to be on a ladder doing work and like you're one-handed trying to close this knife?
No.
It's just I don't know. I mean, drop shut is just not for me. I like a controlled shut, not gritty or anything, but obviously smooth. Right, hydraulic. Yeah. That's what
I'll take it on like a compression lock or something where my hand's out of the way.
Yes,
but if I'm up in the lock bar,
compression lock is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah. So for a compression lock where your fingers are out of the way, yeah, for sure, drop shut. Right. Like that's just better. But if your fingers are ever in the path of the blade, it just doesn't seem optimal.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's where OTFs. That's where they come in because they are the best one-handed opening and closing knives. You hate them or not?
That's true.
I mean, that's true. Yeah.
If they were, and if they were legal,
unless you didn't want to go to prison, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could say that the best knives for action are fixed
action.
blades.
Yeah, out of the sheath.
No, pulling it out of the sheath.
Funny.
No, I'm kidding.
I do want to say there's one more thing that is overrated, actually. Most of the things that are overrated are handle-based, and most of the things that are underrated are, like, blade-based, in my opinion. Like, people don't care about the blade for some reason. But in terms of the handle, I think materials are sometimes overrated in terms of how much they're worth. In terms of price, I think that sometimes people are willing to accept increases in price for a material that doesn't actually cost much more.
Yep.
Uh-huh. They're like hugely overvalued.
Right. They'll be like, titanium, so it's going to be this much more. Like, and I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I look at Tucson and I'm like,
they just have infinite supply.
Unless it has a ton of milling, it's just not going to be.
Difference?
Yeah.
Compared to other Chinese
especially if it's
knives,
just slab-sided titanium or something, it's not going to be. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
No, I that makes sense. I mean, you can look at stuff like steel wheel, like the steel wheel cut jack, and you're like, what you're getting, like D2 in that knife versus there's a Wii lineup that does D2 knives that were like $100. That's like a $40 difference in a cut
or
jack.
Medford.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good point.
HRC,
exactly. Okay, that's a better.
And there's also
a better point.
There's also the fact that if you look at, for example, people were really hyped about the M390 morph, right? M390 Metamorph, because it's in marbled carbon fiber or whatever, right? And for me, I'm like, I don't know if I'm hyped until I see it, because marbled carbon fiber itself, the quality varies so much. right? Like
I've seen a lot of voids in it before.
Yeah, exactly. It can be terrible or it can be great. And so when I look at it in a cheap knife and people get excited, I'm like, I don't know. Like if it has voids, if it's not like a good pattern, I don't know if I'm that excited about it until I see it, you know? So I think there's a lot of hype without verification.
Yeah.
That's the problem. People aren't verifying.
I mean, it might. Well, there's also, you might get that carbon fiber morph, and it will be a different quality than someone else's, because there might be a variation in the manufacturing.
Right. We don't know who
cheaper.
they're sourcing from or anything.
Yeah, I think people need to realize that there's a ton of different people making these materials. It's not like it's one big company,
Yeah. But I think this is a good time to move on to the upcoming knives and news section of our podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I mean, definitely we have to talk about the one thing that's happening this weekend, Blade Show West.
Yes.
That's kind of hype, not going to lie. I mean, it's a little... It's not as exciting as
the real
Blade
one.
Show.
Yeah.
But it is pretty exciting.
The real Blade Show.
So I think we're starting with we and Civivi.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes.
Definitely want to talk about these backlocks first from Civivi. I think that's the hottest thing. That's
oh my god, I want one so bad.
Yeah, that's definitely the hottest thing coming out. It's not it's Civivi has the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So we're all looking at the same picture right now, but basically there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variations of this backlock. It's like a Bowie blade, traditional like buck kind of like a buck 110 location backlock, with a bolster and a different handle material on each one. And these are what's unique about this is that it's a budget line, and also the handle materials just look good.
They look great,
like just from pictures. These
it looks great for what it is.
Different types of carbon fiber, different types of micarta, the color combinations, they work. I mean, it's
probably the best looking Civivi in their lineup. I personally, I think.
By a mile.
Yeah. I mean, this knife actually has me going, wait, I might own a backlock. I'm not into backlocks, honestly, I'm not. But this knife has me going, like, that's kind of impressive. So
I actually just gave away my Buck 110 Slim, which I honestly really liked, but there were some things that I just wasn't a fan of. This is going to be a fantastic replacement for it. Instead of me going up to one of their, like, $100 micarta versions, I can probably get this for, I'm going to go on a limb here and say sub $100 for sure.
Oh, yeah. Probably like $70, honestly.
That's what I was thinking.
Better too.
Yes, and
no, definitely.
I think it looks better than the one we're going to talk about next, which is also a backlock, and it's from Wii.
I'd say so.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I'll argue with you actually. If this wasn't a backlock, I would love this.
Yes.
It looks really like tanky. However, the backlock thing
it's
it doesn't
place,
fit,
definitely.
in my opinion.
It looks like
it looks odd.
It's weird. It looks like it should be a liner lock.
Yeah.
And so, just really quickly let the viewers know, this is the Blocao, BLOCAO, Wii knife model 920. And it's basically kind of the same thing as the Civivi, except not as cool.
I actually just saw the blade length stat on this thing, and it is...
Oh, it is
gosh, I might have to get one anyway.
It looks like it reminds me. I don't know why. It reminds me of that CRKT Crawford Casper I had in terms of the size and kind of the shape of the handle. I don't know why. That's a weird comparison to make, but that's what it gives me vibes of.
One thing I hate.
I really hope they do different variations.
I hate that lanyard hole. I hate it.
Get rid of lanyard.
It just ruins
I'm
the
tired
flow
of
for
them.
me.
Stop it. Stop.
People that are actually like super into knives and actually use them a lot don't touch lanyards. They just don't mess with them. I don't know.
I mean, because think about it. Like, how does that? Like, I'm not hating on it, right? I like lanyards. Sometimes they look cool, but how does that like Darth Vader lanyard bead really help you perform?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna defend those people a little bit. I mean, they might, stick it in like their little change pocket of their pants, and it's easier for them to pull out the like lanyard rather than to hook it onto that.
I don't think you'll have a problem pulling out this knife though.
4.2 inches. No. I don't think this is one of those knives that need a lanyard.
I have one lanyard and it's on my Benchmade proper because it doesn't have a clip. So I'll kind of hang the lanyard out of my pocket, but I don't have. It's not very long.
Yeah,
it's like
that makes sense.
But
now,
this thing, No.
There is something
No.
important to note here. So the Civivi is for two-handed opening. It just has like a nail nick kind of thing, right? But the Blocal,
Well, it's a fuller.
right? Yeah, fuller. But the Blocal, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The Blocal is has a thumb stud on a backlock,
Yes.
and we've seen this before, right? Like the Cold Steel Recon 1, the Cold Steel Code 4. In my experience, it's not a combination that works very well. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I had it on my buck. The slim comes with a thumb stud.
Mm-hmm.
It worked okay, but it was never close to being smooth or enjoyable to deploy. So if you're looking at that and thinking, oh, it's going to be great. No, it's going to be a terrible fidget knife. This is probably going to be a decent work knife, but it's not going to be fun to open.
I'm looking at this right now, and I mean, like, it does look like I would prefer it to have been two-handed opening, but I don't know. We're just gonna have to see. We're gonna have to get it in hand or something, because I just can't tell.
Oh, I'm just not gonna buy
it. I'll probably check it out eventually.
No, I'm buying that.
I won't buy it.
I'm buying that Civivi. Like the Civivi is too similar to the Blocal for me to be like, I want the Blocal. Like Civivi just.
Except in size, it's gonna be.
Oh yeah.
I'm guessing the Civivi is gonna be under 3-inch blade, probably 2.5, 2.75. This thing's going to be monstrous. I would love to try one out personally. I doubt I would keep it.
Yeah,
but
isn't it kind of interesting?
I'm guessing.
Though? Like how the Blocal just has like regular Marble CF, I guess, and then the Civivi one has like all these different really cool micartas and CF.
But the Wii is like probably going to be 4 or 5 times more expensive.
That's like $250.
So to our viewers, we haven't said it, but the overall length of the Blocal is 9.33 inches with a blade length of 4.21 inches. So it's kind of a beast.
Huge.
Yeah. S35 VN blade steel. So typical Wii, S35 VN, which okay.
They stopped using a lot of M390, right? Oh wait, that's actually interesting.
Lately.
What's the next knife? So the next knife we're looking at is called the Hecate. Oh shoot, I messed up the Google Doc. Okay,
you're good.
It's okay. Hecate.
Hecate? Is it Hecate?
I have no idea. Hecate. I just feel like Hecate is.
I'm gonna call it the Hecate
or something.
I think Hecate. Yeah. So this knife is what is it? Model 922, and I mean, first of all, it's hideous. Like, let's just get that out of the way. It's hideous. I'm trying to get it so that we can see the blade. Hold on. Did I do it? Okay,
it's pronounced Hecate.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a goddess of magic, witchcraft, the night, moon, ghost, and necromancy. It's a Greek goddess.
I heard of that. Okay, so why are we pronouncing?
So that's what it's named after.
Okay, so we got the Hecate, and it is in CPM 20 CV. So it's not M390, which is interesting because Chinese knives have used M390 instead of the other variants for a while now. So I've been hearing a lot about a shortage of M390. So
really?
There's apparently been a shortage of M390, and so that's why even for example the Wii Nar, I think they wanted to do it. I think he wanted to do it in M390, but he ended up doing it in S35VN because they told him if you want to do it in M390, you have to wait longer for the production to finish.
Lion still took it all. So they have all the M390.
The Italians stealing all the M390.
20 CV is all right. I'm okay with 20 CV.
Oh, I don't have any problem with that. I just thought it was interesting that
better. It is interesting. No, I agree with you. I haven't seen any Wii 20 CV.
No, they don't have any.
Do you know of any?
They don't
off the top of your head. Interesting.
Yeah, this is the first one.
This Hecate, it looks very similar to some of their other designs. I forget what they're called because they were all
it reminds me of the
before.
D2 one. They had a D2 one that looked like that.
Yes. It's one of the 600 series Wii knives that looked like this. It's kind of like it's hard to explain, really.
You can say
the handle's got this weird wavy pattern in it. Yeah. It's a black washed whole knife. The whole knife is black washed. What would
It's a
you call
sheep's
that
foot with a
blade shape?
harpoon.
Yeah, sheep's foot with a harpoon.
Just
I
don't even know what to do with that.
It has a it has a thumb hole, which is just not going to be able to deploy it. I'll tell you that right now. And it's got a very weird shaped flipper tab that is the same shape as the thumb hole. Like it does not look like
It's
a
ugly.
knife to
It's
use.
Well,
personally.
there's a couple of
It's
things
ugly.
that sort of they come out to me as, oh, this is not a good design. Like besides the looks, right? So the first thing is when you look at the flipper tab, where your index finger would be, that's going to be a hot spot.
It's going to be
It's just going to be when
It's going to be bad.
yeah, it's just gonna be into your finger. Like that's just not gonna be good. Second thing is, so based on the location of that thumb divot, right? You see that there's a thumb ramp, right, going up to that thumb hole. That's fine,
Yeah.
but it's so high, and then there's a point that if you want to use your index finger on the spine, you're not going to be able to reach over that tip. So it's not you're not going to be able to choke up with your index finger and do like fine detailed tasks. It's just going to like be super uncomfortable for no reason.
And with that harpoon, that would actually work really, really well for index finger cutting.
Yeah,
so
if
they
they
just kind
didn't
of
have that thumb,
ruined
that random thumb hole thing, it would have been a lot better. So
I don't even know why it's shaped the way it is. It's shaped kind of like a weird pentagon type. shape.
It's odd.
and then there's
I don't
two
like it.
more problems. The first one being that, well, this isn't a problem. This is, I guess, technically subjective. But what they did is a crappy version of a rock pattern on the handle. And so instead of doing it random, they have it moving inwards, right, all into the same direction.
Yeah. It looks like shark fins.
Yeah,
or
that's
something like
actually
Yeah.
if you watch like the videos on YouTube on like how to do a rock pattern, like rule number 1 is don't do that. Actually, like they say, like do not follow the curve of the handle. Just keep going straight and ignore the curve of the handle, and it'll look more natural. So I think it would have been better if they just tried like either a completely random rock pattern or like an Anzo pattern or no pattern. But anything but what they actually did would have been better. So
I made this joke before, but it looks like a
It
CRKT
does.
to me personally.
It
And
is.
it's not in a good way.
It's like a higher quality.
It has a
CRKT.
glass breaker, I just noticed.
Yeah.
What?
Oh my god, it
Oh,
does.
gosh.
Oh no.
That's horrible.
Didn't I pointed that out to y'all?
Oh yeah, I
a few days
remember.
ago,
Yeah,
I forgot.
yeah, it looked kind of weird
Why?
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's got a glass breaker. Like I don't know what we is trying to go for with this. I don't know what.
too. And a lanyard hole.
Like,
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Wait, is that glass breaker on the
Yeah.
lanyard hole?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're basically putting the point of impact at the weakest point of the steel, which is a hole.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to the next knife. So the next knife we have is some Ferrum Forge, I think, collaborations.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
me.
Ferrum Forge collaboration.
Oh boy. Okay.
I
They
actually
look
like
for
these.
work.
they look good.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna. I was trying not to say anything, but yeah,
They're doing it on purpose
if you're
at this
curious,
point. They
go
have to
look at
be.
these
They
pictures.
Have to be. There's no way they don't know what they're doing anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, they look very Ferrum
Ergonomic.
Forge. That's all I have to say.
You mean phallic
They
forge?
always feel very natural in your hand.
Oh no.
We did a Discord pass round of a Ferrum Forge something.
Fortis?
Fortis, yes, thank you. We did the Ferrum Forge Fortis, the Wii version. So I will presume that this will be very similar in quality to that, and that knife was great, and it was a little bit on the expensive side.
So here's my
but it
deal
was
with when
nice.
I look at this, okay? Because when I see a Ferrum Forge collaboration, one, I know it's going to be marked up like crazy, right? So it's going to be pretty expensive. This is not going to be a cheap knife. If you look at the Mordax and stuff
I mean,
like that,
Ferrum Forges in general are already expensive knives.
Yeah.
right. So that's the first
You
thing.
know.
So I'm saying, okay, first I'm going to be paying more than I normally would for this knife. The second thing I look at is, okay, the milling pattern is atrocious. It's just that's just not a good milling pattern. I don't know. It doesn't
It's
vibe with me
interesting.
It looks very
interesting.
uncomfortable, to be honest.
Well, I'm trying to think of what I would describe this milling pattern as.
I could find a couple words to describe
It
it.
looks it looks like a super dense keyboard.
Oh, the middle part. Yeah,
You can
yes.
file things on that milling pattern. You can
Oh.
file emails on it, it looks like.
Yes, no, you're right. Yeah, it does look like you can file your
Sharpen your knife
nails
on
on
it,
that.
40
Right.
grit.
The other thing is,
I'm not sure what the cutouts are for. That's weird.
if you get rid of that, like imagine this is a plain handle and imagine it isn't horrendously ugly for a second, right? Just imagine a plain handle. If you look
It'd
at
be
it,
much
really,
cheaper.
it's not much different from any of their other designs. They all tend to just be the same thing: drop point, like titanium slab. Just
But this one has
Don't say that.
a tiny knee curve, though.
People are gonna get triggered.
right, exactly. This one, the only
it's got a baby recurve.
The only difference I can see between this one is that they added an unnecessary recurve.
which
It
I
actually
will not
reminds me a
buy.
bit of like the subvert
Yeah.
blade.
At least the Subvert went all in on
Just
their
like the
blade.
top
This
half
is like
of it.
so pointless.
This has that recurve where Nick Shabazz would say that he's angry at it because
it's
it
a
doesn't
non-committal.
commit to being.
I agree with
recurve.
that 100%.
Well,
Recurve.
yeah. Well, it also it transitions into the finger choil, right? And so it's like, what is this
Yeah.
supposed to do, really, right? Like, I think it just makes you catch material easier at the finger choil. Like, it just,
Yeah, it's kind of steering it right at it.
yeah, I'm not really sure if that's like a good decision. So I don't know, but
I don't know. We'll have to see on that one.
oh no, this is another
it's
knife I'm never gonna
interesting.
see. Just later.
Brian, you never know. I there have been a million knives that I've said, oh, well, I'll never look at that, but then somebody
Yeah.
ends up sending it to me. So.
That's fair. I mean, if someone else likes it and then they're like, Brian, you want to try it out? I'll be like, yeah, sure, you know. But
Yeah.
I'll pay $8 just to badmouth a knife more. Why not?
Play $8. What's this next knife?
This is
Let's see,
the
the Riazio.
Riaz
Easy, I don't know what's called.
Riaggio.
Ria-
Riaggio.
Riaggio. Is
All
that
right,
Italian
so-
or something?
Model 921. Another CPM 20 CV knife. So that's really interesting.
Now this one I like a lot. For some
Why?
reason. I don't know.
Dude, that blade like hurts me.
The crazy compound grinding is stupid, but
With compound spine.
yeah, with the compound spine. But for some reason, I just like the shape of it.
I'm gonna tell you, look, the silhouette
Yep.
looks fine, right?
The silhouette's good.
And also,
I don't know. It's attractive to me.
I don't hate the fact that they use two wee pins. Do you see that?
Yeah, wee wee.
Wee. Yeah,
Wee-wee.
I kind of like the wee wee.
It's kind of cool.
That's not
I like.
bad.
It seems like the Wii insignia is also smaller too, right? On
Yeah.
this knife.
I think they could have knocked this one out of the park if they had used a non-compound grind. If they had just done a normal grind on it, I think it would have been
Yeah,
a
I
really
think
nice knife.
a
Actually.
normal.
It's got
yeah,
a really cool looking handle.
agreed. A normal grind and not the line on the handle though. I don't like that line, but I mean I don't hate the line either. But I just think that the line would look better if it didn't go past the pins. Like it was only between the
Yeah,
pins.
that looks a little weird.
Yeah, I think that would
Yeah.
actually look pretty decent. If the line stopped from pin to pin, and then the blade was just a full flat or something, or just a flat with a swedge, that would look dope.
I
Mhm.
honestly wonder if Wii does these designs and they're just like, okay, kind of like the Blackout. They're like, okay, let's take this design, we're gonna make it, it's gonna look okay, and then we're just gonna kind of mess it up just a little bit. So we'll add a backlock, or we'll add a compound grind, or
So this this knife is designed by this guy named Tony Tietzel, is how I think that is
It's
pronounced.
Tetzel, like pretzel.
Tetzel. Okay.
I just made
Tetzel.
that up. I'm
It's spelled.
just saying.
Okay, it's Tietzel is how it's spelled.
Tietzel.
He's Tietzel. So he I guess he's TNT Knives on Instagram. I can't find anything else of it. The only other thing I found of him is a Boker TNT Hunter fixed blade, which I don't know. It looks kind of similar in like design language, I think. in
So
terms
I'm
of the
looking at
shape.
his other knives on Instagram after you told me that, and they look normal. So
he
why?
wanted to go all in on this, yeah.
yeah. It looks. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Is it's not got this
I like
crazy
it. I
compounding.
think it's cool. I probably wouldn't personally pick it up, but it's definitely
It's
something
unique.
different. It's better than all the rest they've showed
This
us
is-
so far. So,
This is something you'll like if you like that ZT with the hidden flipper tab.
oh, the 055.
Yeah, the GTC one.
Yeah.
So what I don't get though is and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see the point of compound grinds as it is. I know there's a reason behind them, but I don't like them. But on a fixed blade,
that's a fixed blade? I just barely
worse.
noticed that. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Never mind, it's not cool
So
anymore.
do you stick with your previous statement? Okay.
I am blind.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I've been looking at
it's
this
a
for
fixed
5 minutes
blade.
straight and just realized it's a fixed blade.
Yeah, it's a fixed blade. It comes with a black kydex sheath. It does have a clip. Oh wait, that's on the sheath. Duh.
Yeah. Tech lock.
Yep.
No,
I was about to say.
Oh yeah, I know. It's kind of it's a cool knife. It's kind of bigger. 8.76 inches in overall length, and then blade length of 4.15 inches. So
If you squint and look at it, it looks
with
better.
no compound, huh?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
It's
you're
smaller than
spot
the
on with
folder.
that
That's
one,
kind of
yeah.
weird. Both of the folders
Yeah.
are bigger than that. That's funny.
Yeah. So what's next? What is this next one? Some more Civivis.
I think it's just a random Civivi. I'm not that hyped about it, so I put it last, and I don't even know what it's called.
It looks kind of boring.
So
Yeah.
there's some new Civivis. Don't know what they're called.
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
All right, listen, guys, just buy the backlog.
Yeah,
Okay,
nothing else matters.
Just
Yeah.
Yeah, skip this one.
That
It's not-
backlog
it's
is
not
so
worth it.
hot. Like,
Well, there's some new Civivis coming out, but we can't really find any
There's no
substantial
name
information.
on their Instagram. It literally
I
just
like
says
whoever
new
runs
from
that account.
Civivi.
They're
Yeah.
entertaining.
Okay.
Oh wait, hold up, guys. Looking at the picture on Instagram, it looks like those two on the left might be micarta.
no, that's nice.
Are they?
I could be wrong if you want to
No, I
double
mean
check
it could,
me.
it could be because I mean the backlog.
Oh, they
ones
do
are
look like
definitely
micarta when you
so
zoom in on it.
Oh,
I
interesting.
care about this like 9 times more since it's micarta.
Well,
I still
that's-
probably won't get
the
it,
reason
but
that's cool is because I think that the Chinese companies can do micarta cheaper. Like
Chicardo.
Yeah.
they're just able to micarta. So, I mean, do you see that Damascus micarta? That stuff's pretty cool. Well, it's on the
What?
knife I made
No,
for
I haven't.
Jin. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
That's cool.
But
Well, we should start banging through this.
Yeah.
Because we've been kind of.
no,
So
just do a
next,
4 hour podcast. Who cares?
yeah.
One more thing, actually. I just posted this in that we didn't have this in our document. I found this as well. It's a Ferrum Forged Civivi. I just want to get you guys like
Looks like a void.
quick thoughts on it.
Yeah, just post it.
Looks
Where is
good.
it?
I
Wait,
like
where
it.
is
I like it better than the Wii U. It's in
I
the
like
Discord
it.
chat.
I'm sure it's gonna be a good
Yeah, it looks
price. I
pretty
like
good. I
it. It looks
can't lie.
good. I'm not sure what.
That's not bad.
It looks like a mini
Yeah.
Archbishop or
With
something.
a functional.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best I can describe it to the viewers. Is it? Yeah, a functional hole mini Archbishop looking thing.
Oh, you know what's overrated?
G10, I think handle.
You know what's overrated?
What's overrated?
Finger choils. Big finger
Um,
choils on small knives that already have small blades. Give me less than that.
I prefer larger finger choils. A lot of smaller ones don't do it for me. Like the one on the PM2 and PM3 is too small for me.
Oh no, I mean
I
either
hate them.
commit or don't do it at all. But I prefer don't do it at all.
Oh yeah, definitely. Don't
Well, yeah.
make like a little
Yeah,
like a useless
yep,
finger
I
choil.
think
Then
you
it's
should
just a
commit.
sharpening choil.
Yep.
That's wasting blade space.
So let's blast through these next ones. Holt haptic.
Ugh.
Boring. Personally.
Yeah,
I
don't have
I wouldn't
much
mind
to
trying
say
one,
about
but
it.
I don't
changed the
really
blade
care about
shape
it.
A little bit. I think they did. I could be wrong though.
I don't know. Holt, for some reason, doesn't have much information of it
Yeah.
No,
on their website. The only thing they have really is it says steel hardened to 61C with cryogenic treatment. But
I like it. Even though it's just another flipper.
Oh, is that? Did you just post the
Yeah.
haptic?
oh, I see. Yeah,
Alright,
he
let's
did.
see it.
It looks. Oh, okay. I like the blade. Okay.
I
it's
think I
cool.
like it
It's-
better than the
I
Spectre.
do like
It's neat.
I like the handle better than the Spectre. That whatever pattern is called, I like that.
Yeah. It's neat. Can't wait
Yeah,
to see
exactly. I
it get
can't wait to see it for
scalped.
$2,200.
No.
Basically.
Yep. So next thing, speaking of Holt, Spectre stolen. So
Yeah, if they had a Spectre
Wait,
that
that's
was
so
stolen
much
from
cooler
their
than the
tape.
I
Spectre.
think it's a lot cooler.
Yeah, that's so much cooler with the swedge.
I like the blade shape.
Yeah, no, that's hot.
on the
That's hot.
haptic.
Good job, Holt. Good job.
Spectre stolen. So they had a Spectre stolen from them.
Yes. There was a post on Reddit, and I think it might have been multiple, but I know for sure one was stolen. Basically, a guy paid for it, and right as he paid for it, some other person walked off with his Spectre and the COA.
This is at Blade Show.
Yes.
Wow.
The interesting thing to me is the fact that this doesn't happen more often because, I mean, as sad as it is to say, there's a lot of people who aren't that good. And, I mean, like, if you're willing to scalp $1,000 off someone, right? Like, there's plenty of people who are willing to steal, and there's no security or anything like that. Like, you walk up to it.
And it's like a chaotic environment.
Right. It's crazy. You walk into the, I think in one of my very first podcasts on the Knife Nets podcast, Brian was talking about how at his first show it was so overwhelming because people are just grabbing his knives. Mm-hmm. Like he's just like like who took what's going where, right? Like you have no idea what's happening. You don't know these people.
And you can't trust them with $1,000 knives, like.
Right, and like people are just like like putting them in their pocket, like seeing, oh, is the clip retention good? Like
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
so
it's just I don't know.
It's surprising it doesn't happen more, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, well, I think that it's surprising it doesn't happen more, and there should be precautions taken to prevent this kind of stuff from happening. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased because my parents literally work in security. When you try to steal stuff and it beeps and whatever and all that kind of stuff, like tags and all that labels, my parents do that. And so for me, I'm just like, I look at this kind of environment and I'm like, how is more theft not happening? Like,
I don't know. I think, a lot of people just kind of, it might, it could very well be that, it's more common than we think it is. And we just default to truth and then we think that it doesn't happen. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, I think it definitely, if it happened, more makers would report it, right? They'd be like, oh, this got stolen or this got stolen. Because they know exactly what they brought to the show. So, So I just think that people are just, I guess, pretty good, I guess, in general in the knife community.
Yeah, we're generally trustworthy people, I feel like, because we know everything costs a lot of money in this community. No one wants to lose any of your knives, of course,
Exactly.
Right. It's just the few bad people who
ruin it for everyone else.
Will do that. Yeah.
Like everything else in life.
No. Well, there's always one person, that ruins it for everyone.
Now, how about this next one? The ZT Anzo collaboration, a double detent slip joint, the ZT 0230. What about that?
I prefer the EWC. This is not something that appeals to me personally.
There is someone on the Discord who asked me about this one, and I said it looked like a butter knife.
Kind of.
It's a Monte Carlo Anzo.
Yeah. I think that the silhouette of the knife is actually very appealing. There's no reason why this couldn't have been a front flipper like the same style as the EWC, like a double detent slippy front flipper. That would have been pretty cool. As a nail nick double detent?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not super interested in it. I don't know. MSRP is for $225.
Come on,
I mean, so I have my.
We'll have to see. Well,
like
dealers cut, prices on that, so that'll be lower.
I think retail's 180 on it, but that still seems a little high to me personally. But
I mean, it's 20 CV, carbon fiber handle both sides.
There is one interesting thing I need to give them credit for, though. So when I look at my EWC, the first thing I tried to do is I tried to treat it like a slip joint with a nail nick. So I pretended there was a nail nick and I opened and closed it. And the whole time I thought to myself, this wouldn't be that bad if the detent was a little bit stronger, so that so it felt more like a traditional, when you're opening and closing. They have that resistance from the lock bar. Well, what they did is, if you notice, there's actually two lock bars. The EWC only has one because it's supposed to be like for a quick flipping, opening, and closing. The ZT actually has two, so it actually does work better as a nail nick opening with that. Like, it'll feel closer to a real slip joint. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's kind of cool, I guess. Like, it's not for me, but I understand what they were going for, and I think that they will manage to achieve that with that kind of design. Just not for me.
As a As a gentleman's carry, this is a good knife, I think.
Yeah.
It's
It
like
reminds
a
me of
tuxedo knife.
But
it reminds me a little bit of the Spyderco Terzula Slip It. I tried one of those recently, and it's kind of like, I believe it's the same like double detent thing. It felt unique. It was very different. It had a half stop.
Mm-hmm.
It was a kind of cool thing. But even that has the thumb opener. I don't know how I feel about. I just don't like nail nicks personally, but it's a different design from them.
Yeah.
They're trying.
It is, yeah. That's a good point. It's a very different design to see from ZT. So
there's only one
that.
nail nick in the world that I will accept, and that's the Menandi.
Yeah, Menandi's too classic.
Everything
That's
else-
the most ultimate gentleman carry right there.
Yeah, everything else, I'm like,
Yeah.
get this nail nick away from me, please. Just get it away from me.
Most of them are awful too. So
Yeah.
like the finishing on them is just.
Oh yeah.
They're not for me. I've never cared for nail nicks, so I don't know. This is something I'm not very
I
interested
respect
in.
him.
but,
I respect him trying something new. I respect it.
Yeah, I this will be for someone
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah,
So-
it's ZT does need to take this step. Like, it is an important step for them because they've been doing the tactical overbuilt crap for way too long.
It's getting
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
honestly. You know, I like their fit and finish is pretty good. Their actions are pretty good from the ZTs that I've tried, but the designs, they just do that one thing kind of over and over and over in a few different sizes, and that's it.
Uh-huh.
Now, what about this knife, the Riat
amazing.
prototype?
It's
It looks
amazing.
like
I love this. I love it so much.
It looks cool.
I personally,
Yeah,
I
me
prefer the
too.
thumb
thumb stud
stud.
or flipper. Yeah, that's the question.
Thumb
stud
or
version?
flipper?
Thumb stud, yeah.
I don't know. I like them both.
The flipper ruins the
this is
aesthetics to me.
completely subjective. I prefer my thumb studs to not have like a specific shape like that. Like just be like, a traditional
fair.
thumb stud. I just prefer that. But aside from that, I really do like the profile of the design. Some people have pointed out it looks somewhat similar in silhouette to like the Koenig Airbus and
Conegarius.
and other.
It does.
Yeah, and so knives like that, and that's not a bad profile to be similar to. Like that is a good looking
No,
profile.
no.
So
No, yeah, you're exactly
grind
right.
looks pretty
it does
decent,
look
too.
like that.
Just from pictures, I can't say.
Yeah, it looks
obviously, but
solid.
It looks cool. What is the handle?
Micarta.
Is it like
Micarta and titanium.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting like
That inlay looks very intricate.
it's
Yeah.
a weird, crazy inlay.
I dig that a
I
lot.
really
Shape
hope
looks
they do
good,
it in
but that
some
knife
more
just looks good in
attractive
general. Like,
colors.
everything about it to me.
Now I just need to know what is the price gonna be, please.
Probably like
Oh, it's gonna be
Please,
340.
Riat, please.
340.
It's gonna
I'd
be
say.
high.
Riat.
Yeah, probably 350
Yeah,
or
something
so,
crazy.
somewhere
Yeah,
around
I
there.
know, but
Something
I
crazy.
might pay it this time. Looks pretty good. Now, speaking of
so-
stuff I'm willing to pay for, so we're done with Blade Show West. There was some other stuff at Blade Show West we might have missed, but we definitely want to talk more about this next piece of news, which is the quiet carry in Banax, heat treated to 60 Rockwell by Peters at around $300.
That's a good
pretty
price.
exciting.
Yeah.
I wish the
same.
design were better, but I really commend them for going that extra mile to state the HRC, which some companies do, but also who it's heat treated by. Peters is a really well known name in the community, and they're trusted. Brian, you obviously use them. And Vanex is a really, really cool steel that I think needs to get out more. So this is really cool.
I've never
I'm
tried
excited for
Vanex,
it.
so I just don't. I don't know. I hear good things. That's the one thing our Discord's been saying lately is if it has Vanex, they're hyped about it.
Yeah, that's so Vanex is one of those interesting steels where it sort of breaks that equilibrium, I guess, where people say, you either have you either have wear resistance, toughness, or corrosion resistance. You can't have like excellence in all three because you have to give up one or the. And that's actually not true. You have those three categories, and the fourth category that people don't talk about is price. Nowadays, you can sacrifice price. In other words, you can pay more to have better in the other three. So, for example, Vanex will outperform HCR 13 MOV in literally every category by a lot, right? It'll be way more corrosion resistant, way tougher, and have way more wear resistance. So, it is just you pay more. You pay a lot more. So,
Yeah.
So now what makes this knife interesting is it's $300. We have to assume that, just the blade and the heat treat itself is a substantial portion of that. So that's pretty cool, I think. I'm hoping that a lot of the price comes from the fact that you have to grind slower. Like I hope they know that if you grind as quickly as you grind other steels, you will overheat it. Like it just heats up so fast.
It'll ruin that heat treat.
So, but I'm optimistic for it. I'm definitely like if I have the money at the time, I will grab one, like for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in it. It's probably not something I would buy personally, but I can definitely see why other people are very excited for it.
Same. I would really love to see this in future designs from them. A lot of their designs really appeal to me. This one not so much.
Yeah,
but I'm very excited about the blade.
Oh man, could you imagine the quiet carry? What's that one?
IQ.
Yeah, the IQ in Vanax.
Yeah, I would buy it instantly. Well, they use LMAX for that
I know
already,
it's
right?
good. It's good, but I'm just saying,
it's which is an okay steel, but if they did this, oh yeah, I'd buy it immediately.
So the next thing on our list is the Koenig Mini Arius. I mean, I don't know that there's much to say for this other than I'm happy for it. It's a cool knife, and now it's smaller.
It'll sell insanely well. I'm positive.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is,
Yep.
It's kind of an alternate version to the mini Goblin. Well, it's probably a little bit bigger
with
than
the mini
Goblin.
Arius. Yeah, I think someone said that's gonna be 3-inch blade, 4-inch handle. So I think the mini Goblin's a 3 1/4
That's
inch
not too
blade.
bad.
I could be wrong though. I'm not sure.
Oh, it's the mini Goblin's gonna be larger.
Yeah, I can't say for
Interesting.
sure, but
Huh.
yeah, Goblin's tiny. What the heck?
For some reason, I thought the mini Goblin was smaller than
Yeah,
that.
the Goblin's real tiny. It says 3-inch blade. I don't know. It's about 7 inches, same exact. So probably the same exact size, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I don't.
Wait, are we talking about the mini Arius? Okay,
Yes.
sorry, I got a text. Yeah, all I have to say about any mini version is like, I mean, cool. It's like a different size for people who need that
Exactly.
size.
Like that design.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just good. Like, just have
I mean,
more sizes. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be one of those knives that. I mean, I think the Arius is pretty well priced for what it is. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they could probably charge more for it, but I'm glad they don't.
So I think this is going to be a good buy for anyone that wants something a little bit smaller, in that that's also an Arius. So next is the Berg Slim Micro.
ooh, this is my first time seeing it, and it is not bad.
No, I'm really excited for it. I've been wanting a Berg for a while, and this is probably going to be the first one I get.
Is that a hollow grind?
I believe so. It looks like fairly thick blade stock, so I'm
so.
guessing it's a hollow grind.
It's interesting looking.
You sound apprehensive about the design, that perfect design.
Now, okay, what I will say is it looks nice open, but closed, it looks a little bulky.
It's a little bit chunky. Sure. It's a little bit chunky.
I like it.
Yeah.
It reminds me honestly of like the Pilar a little bit.
God, that's exactly what I was about to say. Yes, it looks a lot like the Pilar,
The Chad
but
brother,
like a good version of it.
The Chad brother. It's definitely very cool looking. I mean, I don't know, not something I'd buy personally, but it's cool. Very Cleaver-esque, right?
Now, see, this is
sure.
interesting because it sort of leads into our knife collecting topic of this episode, which is how do we collect and how do we see our own collections in terms of like how we categorize each knife. And the reason I think it connects is because, a lot of the times we look at knives and we say, yeah, that's pretty cool, but not for me, right?
Yeah.
And so what is for you guys? Like what, you know what I mean? Like what do you consider like, oh yeah, that's for me when you see it? As opposed to like, oh, it's good, but not for me.
Well, for me, it's gotta be. I feel like I gravitate towards kind of just utilitarian looking knives. I feel like I'm not sure if that's a good word for it, but I kind of gravitate towards these knives that look like the Paramilitary 2, the Manix 2, and also like the ZT-0562 and the 0801. Like those are just like the standard knives that I am like, yep, okay, that's what I'm gonna buy. The most out of my comfort zone knife that I've gotten recently was the Metamorph, and that's been kind of opening my eyes to different types of knives. Specifically like front flippers. But I feel like just bigger, bulkier knives are kind of more my thing. Like when I got the Kapara, the Spider Kapara, like I know a lot of people love that knife. I just really didn't care for it. It just really just did not fit in my hand very well. I felt like I almost dropped it a ton of times because it's something about it. Like, and when I say I almost dropped it, I'm talking about when I'm like closing the compression lock and whatever. Um, Something about that knife, it just really didn't do it for me in just terms of like carrying it and using it. So that's kind of how I feel like I collect. That's the stuff I look for when I'm collecting a knife or collecting more knives.
Yeah, I think a lot of people take that approach.
For me,
it's a good approach though.
Yeah, for me, I kind of we have a few roles here mentioned, like use case, like outdoors, EDC, safe queen stuff. I don't have any safe queens, but I like to have knives that fit into different roles. So I have a lot of them. I have some super large, kind of beefy, tanky knives that I use when I know I'm going to be beating the crap out of it.
Yep.
And then if I know I'm going to be going somewhere that's a bit more dressy, I have some smaller stuff like the Boker Urban Trapper Petite. I like kind of everything in that range. However, the design has to be appealing to me. So generally more unique stuff. It has to work well ergonomically. And in most cases, it can't have a crappy blade steel. There's some exceptions, like I have the Victorinox Classic that I carry, just because it's a really, really useful little tool, but the blade steel kind of sucks. But in general, I like to have something. I like to feel like I'm prepared for almost every knife-related situation there could be, in terms of size and bulk and durability and stuff like that.
Yeah, I always look for good blade steel. The worst steel I have is D2, so.
I think I have some like I mentioned, the Victorinox. I have a case that's, I don't know what the heck it is, probably crap. But I generally try to go S30V and up if I can. If I'm in the lower range, like 14C, 28N or something like that, or 12C. Something kind of like that.
Yeah. So Vex?
I'm kind of in a collection crisis right now. Like, at one point I was trying to collect all the different types of steel, and I've had a lot of different types of steels, And at one point I was really worried about the fit and finish. I still am. It's not like I'm not worried about it anymore. But at this point I'm worried about just the designer and the maker, honestly. Like, I would say I'm gravitating more towards mid-techs, if you want to call them that, like Riots that are made from Toshi or Lambert, or CKF that's made from Rosenti, stuff like that, And I don't know. My collection is still very varied from different types of knives. I have hard to use knives. I have gentleman carry. I think I need to get rid of some because I don't carry them like I thought I would.
Yeah. You have a lot of fancy
knives. And that's the thing is, like, you don't need 10 fancy knives. Like, is it cool to have them? Yeah, it's cool. But you gotta, weigh your options. Like, how often do I even carry this? And, of course, you're gonna like more knives than others, And...
Well, yeah, for something, if it's like, if I have a Norseman in my pocket, or if I had a Norseman that I never carried, I'm like, man, that's a $800 or $900 right there.
Yeah, just sitting.
And that's the thing is, like, when you have a whole bunch of, if you have a huge collection, that's a lot of sitting money there. Because I know for a fact most people with a lot of knives, they aren't carrying every damn knife. That's just facts. And you might pull it out and play with it, whatever, cool, whatever. But at the end of the day, you can maybe sell 8 knives and buy a really nice one, if that's what you want to do, obviously. Or you could just pay off your bills like a normal person would,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to cut down on my collection because, like I said, I realize I don't carry a lot of my knives.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
Yeah. That's interesting, though, in that you were talking about how the way you collect has evolved
Yeah.
over time. Like at first you wanted to get all the different steels. Some people I know, they want to try every single company, right? They want to get like one knife from every company. So like a Benchmade, a Spyderco, a Chris
Yeah.
Reeve, a ZT, just try them all out. And then I think that those are all things that you do when, you haven't exactly figured out what categories you care about yet. Like you're just figuring out like, what do I like? You're in that exploratory phase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's and that's part of the cool part of collecting. Actually, I think is like just changing in that way what you care about.
Exactly. So I can't really. That's why I kind of get mad at people for crapping on people that prefer certain things. It's like, dude, that's what they like, and you're not gonna persuade someone by being in like a douche, like that's what they like.
No, and generally when people have found stuff that they like that, they've already been through all of these other knives, and they've narrowed it down to this exact type of knife that they like,
Mm-hmm. Now there are some exceptions. Obviously, some people have only tried one type of knife and will swear only by that knife for some reason.
That's
that
true.
Happens way too often.
Those are usually like company fanboys.
Well, like you'll see like Strider
seen.
people be like, "Oh, the Thorburns are just overpriced junk. Like, look at my Strider; they can do this."
But have you tried them though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Brian, what's your collecting ideology?
So my
kill them all.
Gotta kill them all. No, so my collecting started off in much the same way. Where first I wanted to try every steel. That was priority number one. I've always been blade focused. That's just always how I've been. I've always been like, okay, if I'm gonna get a tool, it better do tool things. So steel was the first thing. I didn't know about HRC or BTE when I first started, obviously. So steel was the first thing that every beginner goes to, right? Then I went to companies because I was told different companies do different steels like to different levels. I didn't know what the levels meant, right? It meant HRC and geometry, but I didn't know what levels meant. I just knew that some were better than others. I was like, I'll just try all the different companies. So I tried knives. All of this was not really for collecting. It was just for experimenting and learning. And then later on, I would build a collection. That was my thinking. So I did a lot of like, I would get a knife and then I'd sort of like, play with it a little bit, lower the value for resale and then resell it. Because that's what happens, right? Like if you want to test out a knife, you like goodbye to like 30% of the value. So whatever, take that loss. Take it as the cost of learning. The cost of learning.
Unless you have a store near you where you can try out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I need to like cut with it and stuff and be like, oh, how is it different? And,
okay, well, yeah, that's fair.
So I would do that, and then so I'd pretty much never sell knives for A or anything like an A grade knife or anything on the swap. Everything would be used, so it'd be like B or C,
or F.
so whatever.
Yeah.
Like a rowdy.
Yeah, or F.
F for fixed blade.
And so now what I've come to is I don't do different use categories at all anymore. Because I used to do like a beater knife, like a heavy duty knife, things like that. Because what I realized is if I want knives for different purposes like that, I can just make a fixed blade, and by using it, I am testing my own knives. So that's important to me as a maker, is I need to always be testing my knives, making sure that they're good. So a lot of the times I'm just using my own knives anyway. And so what I realized is the only time I need pocket knives is when I'm going out, because I'm not going to carry a pocket knife when I'm out and about in LA, right? Not going to carry a fixed blade into the bar. So so my pocket knives are exclusively for EDC, lightweight EDC, gentlemen's carry usually. So that's all I carry my knives for, and so all of my knives fit that category to varying degrees. And so now what I look at in collections is which ones like bring me joy in different ways. That's what it comes down to. So different opening mechanisms, different steels that are cool, different blade shapes and designs. Like that's how I see collections and how I collect is like, first, is it a gentleman's carry for EDC? Yes or no? And then if it's a yes, then I move on. Okay, is it a cool steel? Is it a good, basic geometry that'll cut? And then I look at design. Do I like it or not aesthetically? Subjective. And and that's how I collect now.
I think that's a pretty good way to collect, I think.
So you have it down to like a very refined category, and you stick to that.
Yes, I
pretty
have
well.
one category.
At least from what
now.
I've seen from your collection.
One category, and
Yeah.
you either fit that category or you're not in my collection. And that's what allows me to say things like, the Berg Slim Micro, that looks like a good knife. I actually like how it looks, but I would never carry it in like a bar or something, right? Or like, out at the mall. Like, it's just not something I would carry at the mall, compared to like something more pedestrian. So to me, I wouldn't collect it, but I would still be able to say I think it's a good knife, right?
That's fair.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we should probably move on to the last topic, which was knife making, filling a niche.
Yeah, so this is sort of related to the collecting topic. We're trying to make all the topics sort of related. And so since the collecting topic was about how we as collectors like view knives and decide what deserves to be in our collection, the converse is, as a knife maker, how do you fill a niche and provide someone something specific that they might like, And I'm not saying this is like a teaching thing. Like these topics are not for me to be like, oh, this is how knife makers do this. Now this is just like, I want to throw that out there as like, what do you guys think in terms of how knife makers should go about doing that? Like finding their own niche. Companies, how should they find their own niche and decide like this is what the company is going to be all about,
Personally, I think that you've done actually a really good job of this, Brian, and that at least what I think about when I think about your knives are generally kitchen knives, but sometimes some other stuff too, but they're fixed blades that just cut really, really well. Exactly. They're tools first. They also look really nice and they're very affordable, but you're very much your collecting ethos is kind of blended over into your fixed blade you're making, I think. And it's really intriguing to see that. And again, if I know that if I ever want to have a kitchen knife made, I know who to go to. It's you hands down, because I've seen your stuff and it looks like it performs really well. You care a lot about blade geometry, behind the edge thickness, and the steel type, and you'll even talk people out of more expensive steel sometimes if a lower end steel performs better for their use case. And it's really interesting.
You're
to
not
see
all
that.
about the money, which is pretty rare nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, but that is interesting. Is that when we look at companies, because one of the things that I look at as a collector is there's not that many companies to choose from. You know what I mean? Like we're pretty limited nowadays in terms of like who's actually really quote unquote good, or like who really fits our needs. And I think it's interesting. Like, what do you think? Let's say you have like a prospective person who wants to start a knife company, right? Like, what do you think is a good niche that's available right now for that person to fill?
So,
oh gosh,
nowadays,
that's hard.
Good luck,
and if they are good luck waiting
right?
10 years,
Yeah, exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I think. Is like, I think if you can find a niche, like you are just going to be the only person in that niche nowadays. Like, and you just own it, right? Like the wait list becomes like forever. And as consumers, it's hard to, get anything from that person. It's kind of interesting.
Well, I think if your kind of collecting moved on to knife making, that like folding, making that'd be interesting as well. Like a folding knife that could actually work for everyday carry, that actually cut really well, and then was versatile for, whether it be food prep or breaking down cardboard and kind of everything in between. I think something small and lightweight that cut really, really well would be interesting, because a lot of especially when you get into customs, it's a lot of like really fancy stuff, high materials, but like you mentioned, from the custom makers that you've had experiences with, it shows they don't care about the blade really.
Yeah, and some do, but they're in like different categories of knife making,
Yeah.
which is I think perfectly legitimate, right? Obviously, like it is perfectly legitimate to make a 30 thou behind the edge thick knife if it's for camping, for example, or bushcraft, right? Then
Exactly.
You should go thicker, right? Because that's the intended use, is beating on shit.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't know, like when I think about like filling a niche, I think that like a lot of companies actually don't even know what niche they're supposed to fill anymore. And I think that ZT is a good example of that, where, what niche is this double detent slip joint supposed to fill? It's definitely not the niche they were trying to fill before. It's not tactical, right?
Yeah, not the heavy, crazy, hard use, built tough, strong.
Right, or even the
Like,
slimmer,
yeah.
stabbier knives like the ZT-0452
Yeah.
and stuff like that, right? Like, it's not even that. It's
Yeah.
completely different. And so part of me wonders if some companies are having an identity crisis right now. Like, they don't know what niche they can fill.
I think the only one that I haven't seen struggle a lot is Spyderco, and that's because their niche, in my opinion, is weird designs.
They're always doing new
Yeah.
stuff.
Like
That's-
they have some functional stuff for sure, but yeah, they're always keeping us on our toes. When you get the Spyderco catalog and you look at it, there's no
Exactly.
telling what's going to be in there. You know, it's probably going to have good ergonomics, but that's
You're
about the
expecting
only
a hole
thing
in the
that
blade
you can really count
and
on.
weirdness. That's all you're expecting.
Bingo.
Yep. That's a very good point to bring up. Yeah.
I think that's a safe and good marketing strat, though. Like, that's a good niche, right? Like, it's more flexible.
Yeah.
Because the problem with the ZT niche is that it wasn't bad. There was a phase in knife collecting where everyone wanted overbuilt, right? But, people move on.
Yeah, several years
and so
ago,
I think companies also need to move on. And, like, if they filled a niche very well before, they need to find a new one that they can occupy now that the market has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So, yeah.
I think I'm lucky because my collection, the way that I collect, is like that's what most makers and companies seem to be, sort of gravitating toward. Yeah, it's like EDC, gentleman's carry, kind of whatever, that kind of stuff. Like just easy to carry, easy to pocket, like that stuff. Like chunky blades and stuff aren't really popular anymore. So.
Yeah, like Civivi's doing a really good job of that, actually, which is probably why they're so good at what they're doing. They're making generally smaller knives, certainly lighter weight, with pretty good grinds from what I've seen, even though the steels really need to be changed, in my opinion. They're doing deep carry pocket clips, they're keeping the price low, and they're kind of getting people into that gentleman's carry at a decent price level.
What's interesting, actually, is since you brought up Civivi doing so well, We does not seem to be really catching on design-wise.
No, they're struggling, and you can tell.
Like you can tell by the fact that they're going backwards in size. You have that 4.2-inch blade, right, on the Blacko. Yeah, Blacko. You have that huge over 4-inch blade on the Blacko. It's a lockback on a 4-inch blade with the thumb stud. Like, ooh. Like, I don't know what niche that's supposed to, like, because that's what I think. Whenever I see a company release a new knife, I don't think, oh, is that a good or bad knife to me? I think, oh, what niche does that fill? Like, is it good to someone, right? And then I think,
I'm sure someone will like it, but it's not going to be most people for sure, you know?
Yeah, and that's okay, you know, but I think that we is not really finding the right demographic to aim for right now. I just don't know who that's for. Like, okay, is it supposed to be a big beater? Then why is it S35VN at 60 HRC? Like, is it supposed to be, you know what I mean? Like the steel and the blade shape and the size, they don't match together. So it's just like,
I think they could really cash in if they offered not necessarily the exact same designs as Civivi, but like higher end versions of that demographic they're aiming for. If they could move their customers up from Civivi to Wii and be like, hey, we have very similar knives to this, just at higher end, better materials, things like that. That could be a great marketing ploy for them, but they don't have that. They have good knives in Civivi, and then you get up to Wii, and it's like, this is very strange stuff. I don't know what they're doing here.
You know what we need to do?
And also very expensive.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
They need to make a larger Wienar and a smaller Wienar. That's all they need to do. Sell like hotcakes.
Well, a lot of people, I think, are going to gravitate towards the
big Wienar.
Big Wienar.
Who doesn't want one?
That just see.
The overcompensating Wienar.
Okay, look at this. Look at this.
Exactly.
What happened to this? Do whatever they do with that.
Ooh, what's that?
They teased that finish a while ago. The glitter.
Bruh.
Bex just showed us a weird glitter finish on a.
Okay,
oh my
not
God.
kidding.
That's what I'm saying. That's
I
cool.
would buy
That's
those.
different.
Oh, that's an integral.
Yeah.
I would
that's
buy
the-
them.
That's a
Yeah.
I would buy the rainbow one.
They're cool.
I'd buy both of them.
even
Hell,
with
I
the
don't
tight.
care. That's what I look for. Like it look that the handle shape looks useful. It looks fairly ergonomic, but it has. Well, I don't necessarily look for that exactly, but it has a lot of flair to it. It would stand out in your collection. for sure. And if they did that, they could, like, realistically, if they came out with that and they were like, okay, it's $4.99, I'll buy it, I don't care.
That purple shade though, I want that purple shade all throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at this weird glitter handle that we did.
It's like a spectrum anodization, so it's like different color shades throughout the handle.
Yeah.
Like purple to blue.
It looks like they went for
sparkly.
really, really high voltages for the green blue up to the blue, and then kind of towards the tip you get towards the pink, which is a super high anodization voltage. I really like it.
Ano is hot, guys.
Ano's cool.
Just ano everything. But good colors. But good colors only.
Actually, I really like the colors I did the abstruse in. It's like pink and gold.
Yeah, that was good. I like
love
that.
it. But.
Yeah. So I think now with Ano everything, I think that's a good spot to end this podcast. Unless you guys have anything else to add as a final note.
Give me a Kukarda. If you get one.
Yeah,
please, I'm dying over here.
I'm legit trying for you, Vex. They haven't canceled my pre-order yet.
Thank you,
if
sir.
I get it, you're the first one I'm gonna let
yeah,
out.
And I'll still take more donations of Kukardas, even though if I get one still. Just kidding.
By the way,
you can flip it for like $400.
I think just so people get to know us a little bit better, one thing we should mention is how we view certain because we definitely don't view all niches as equal.
Yep.
Right. Like let me give an example. Like most of us, I actually personally don't care, but most of us think that safe queens are like sort of a less legitimate niche. So if you're a maker who's only making safe queens, and you know that your knives are never going to get used, so you don't care that much about geometry and stuff like that, because obviously the people who buy them are going to use them. It's like sometimes we don't like that as much. That's definitely something I noticed for myself, at least, where I'm like, I always want to see people making things with the intention of them being used.
Exactly.
I can see it from a purely art perspective. If that's your collecting, you like the artistic element of knives, you couldn't care less about whether or not it cuts. I can totally see that. I can respect that. It isn't something I will never ever do. I like even this rainbow glitter knife. I love it to death. You have no idea how much I want this, but if it didn't work, I don't want it.
Yeah.
If it's like 1/4 inch thick blade stock with a full flat grind, I'm not going to use it ever. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't buy
it. With the SE thickness, 60 thou on the edge.
That's nuts.
A bushcrafting rainbow knife.
So yeah, I think this is a good place to stop, though.
Yep.
We're going on about an hour and 22 minutes, so it's been a great podcast. You can find us in the Knife Club Discord. If you go onto the old Reddit r/Knife Club on the sidebar, you can find our Discord link and you can talk to all of us there. You can also find all of our links to our Instagram and YouTube channels and whatnot in the description below on YouTube. And you can email us your questions at behindtheedgepod@gmail.com. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you again next week.
All right. See you guys.